I don't know what is perfect light, but I'm not trendy man. But I heard this perfect light, perfect light. Everybody says, but I don't know what is the perfect light. And please tell me.
I don't know the answer either.
So we now have a phenomenal new technology that is in its earliest days of development. But I see this continuing to be evolved and refined, and I am quite excited. It's a revolution in lighting technology.
LED hasn't allowed us to reduce our energy demands. All it's done is saying, because we're using less energy, we now can use more of it. So to me, LED doesn't mean less light. It means more light, and from an environmental point of view, and actually I think an aesthetic point of view, that's a major problem.
I'm the lighting designer for Times Square, and my idea was, can we possibly collect the private light, that is the billboards, and redirect it? That's what we have to do. We're in Times Square, we don't need any more light. We got street lighting in the end, but we also got little reflective metal circles in the paving, which was how the idea of collecting and redirecting the light at least became slightly possible.
You go into IKEA and every month it's cheaper and there's more stuff with better properties that you can use. And that really has been a powerful change. Light has gone through a revolution it's not seen since, Edison.
That's makes it so fascinating to work in this field. They become more efficient, they become more human-centric. Human-centric means the color rendering is better, they respond better to the needs of humans. They become actually, the eye is there, so they are really also very small, so it's very attractive for designers.
I've always wondered if there should be like a clock on the wall somewhere that just was like a countdown of 50,000 hours from when LED was started, so people could start to know when their LEDs are going to be dying.
Every new light source is progress.
There's been a steady and constant improvement in the technology of delivering light from electricity. This is really one of the hallmarks of industrialization. It's been invaluable to mankind, and it really marks the development of a nation, its use and deployment of lighting. So with any technology, there is always a striving for improvement. There's always a striving and a curiosity for how can that technology be made better.
I would like to think that the driving factor is quality of light, but I suspect the driving factor is quantity of light.
It was driven by efficiency and it's still driven by efficiency. I think it's a pity. I understand it in many, many reasons, power consumption, ecology, but I think we should really also develop for other reasons.
I think everything is driven by energy consumption and maintenance. These are the two drivers, because in commercial projects, we're not talking about private users, but in commercial projects, there's always a question of money consumption and maintenance.
Lamp life, dimming, efficiency, efficacy, the size of the source, the cost, lumens per watt, are all things that drive it.
Perfection is an individual commodity. What suits one may not suit another. It's like philosophy, there's no answer. There are considerations.
But if you look at the original Greek for the word perfect, it's about wholeness and completeness. And I think that's a better way of looking at it.
When you imagine something, you plan something, and you start to make it, and in the end it turns out exactly as you specified it. That would be perfection for me.
There's no one perfect. There are thousands of perfects.
It exists as a perfect balance.
What is perfection and what is the measurements? What's the metrics of perfection?
I don't know if anyone else say that they like perfection, but I don't like perfection. I don't know anyone who like perfection. It's boring. Even for a beautiful lady, if she's perfect, this is terrible.
We grew up under daylight and incandescent light, and that childhood experience created an expectation within us, whether it's subliminal or you're aware of it. Some people are more aware, some people are less aware, but that is, if you don't match that, you might not get the perfect project.
Perfect light for me is 100% beauty and 100% efficiency.
It can be that you get the information you want, but you also have a beautiful surrounding that light gives to you. In Japanese, in this bamboo forest, you see the greenery, you see the leaves on the ground, and you see this perfect light coming in. I collect memories of perfect light.
The perfect light is the one for me where it is totally balanced with the shadow and the contrast and the reflective surface. That's the perfect light.
There's no perfect light, or there's no perfect lighting source, because every single source, even the oldest one or the has-been ones, have its good side and negative side.
Okay, perfection is God, God is nature, nature is daylight. So I think perfection is to achieve a light that can be always changeable, always adapting according to our lighting needs, to our melatonin rhythm, to be perfectly circadian.
There's no perfect color temperature. There's no perfect color rendering. There's no perfect source. The scientists are worry over, is it sunlight? Is it quartz light? Is it a combination of sunlight and quartz light? Which sunlight? At what time of day? At what location on Earth? It all varies.
There are sliding scales of perfection based on how we physiologically respond to spaces. That at certain times, perfection might be a rather darkened, more intimate environment. Other times, perfection might be seen as being in Hawaii and go surfing. I mean, it could be, any of those extremes. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's, relative to lighting, a context that's perfect. I think that if you were to use that word in terms of lighting, it might be too sterile.
I'd have to say that daylight is really the perfect light, transformable over time, over seasons. The angles of the light, the colors of the light is quite a beautiful inspiration. Those of us who are creating what I call nighttime design, recreating environments at night, can, in a sense, infuse the activities and the relationships and the economic vitality and the inspiration at night similarly to the day.
From a sociologist's point of view, the best kind of light is the most responsive light. The light that can be changed, that can be adapted to all circumstances rather than used in a kind of abstract and universal way. A lighting that can change over time, because as, for example, a street changes, you would want the lighting to change without reinvesting in an entire new lighting system. So if you have something like LED, which can be made to change in its color, its color temperature, its responsiveness to movement around it, and so on and so forth, and as the street changes, that would be a perfect light.
This is my vision, to find the perfect light for every single human on Earth.
The notion of a perfect light for human, do I believe such a thing is possible? Absolutely. I'm an idealist and an optimist. I think we can come to lighting that is energy efficient, that is great for vision, that is appropriate for human biological and behavioral regulation, and ultimately can improve human health. Are we there yet? Resoundingly no. Can we get there? I think by working together across disciplines, that can be achieved and will be achieved. And I think there'll be even greater things that will come to the lighting community. I think we've just really begun now, and there's so much exciting work that needs to be done and can be done.
So when I started in lighting, the first light source that we used was MR16.
These are linear fluorescent lamps.
I think it was metal halide.
I can say that probably the halogen, but what surprising me was the metal halide 70 watt.
I used AR111.
150 watt par 38.
A linear tungsten halogen lamp.
Incandescent light.
Halogen lamps.
Halogen lamps?
Natural daylighting.
The first light source I ever got to play with were LEDs.
That one is we call bomboli. There's a very small incandescent lamp in it.
The par can, 1000 watt.
Candles or matches or small explosives.
I had a torch, one of those old-fashioned metal torch flashlight.
If I may say, I was born in the light. I was child in the cinema studio where I'm making the movie, and very soon I became the mascot of the electrician. I was carrying the sandwich, the drink, and then I was carrying the cable and the bulb and the fitting, okay? And the first bulb I remember is this huge incandescent bulb. I have one here, I'll show you. This one is a 5,000 watt, 10 lumen watt. 5,000 watt, 10 lumen watt means 50,000 lumen.
I'd almost love to be able to sort of call everybody's bluff and say, actually, we're still using lots of tungsten, but we're not.
For example, the politicians, the cities and public projects imposed us to use LEDs for its political and good image of it. But so that's why we use LED, and besides, we have less and less choices in the market.
Everyone's put their eggs in the LED basket.
LEDs.
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 LEDs. We specify LED sources.
We are pioneers of the LEDs.
LED.
The light source depends on the project I have. I can tell you, I told you that I can use fire sometimes, okay? I will never use any more sodium, I will never use any more mercury bulb, I will never more use HED because the bulb is too big, okay? So if I use incandescent, that's because I want to see the filament, okay? But the LED manufacturers are making more and more progress, I told you, for the candles. And sometimes you can be bluffed back there, you don't know, okay? But for little things, you can have a choice. But when you have 16 kilometers of facade to illuminate it, to design horses, girls, and everything, and moving, you can't use anything else than the LED.
When I walk through a place like my own university and look at the conventional light sources that are there now, which are incandescent and fluorescent, those are dinosaurs. They're things of the past. Within a relatively short time, a decade or two, those will fall by the wayside because of the tremendous value on energy alone for solid-state lighting.
I'm preferring to use LEDs currently because they're accessible, they're low cost, they're high brightness, and I can use them as it's like a pixel to a screen is a single LED.
Yeah, it became from, or it turned from a technique where not everybody was convinced about that this will change the future in a very, very quick period from this to a serious and reliable tool for lighting, indoors and outdoors. It was in the beginning, maybe it was a little bit like the internet. There were people thinking, well, this is a fashion that goes away.
We moved from an analog world to a solid state world, and so solid state technology's answer to light happens to be LED.
It's the right technology that's reached its right level of maturity at the right time, I think. So where people are very conscious and there are targets set for environmental carbon emission reduction, LED is there to really take that on and make it a viable technology that can be applied or available to the mainstream.
I think it's a light source of our time. It's the light source which we can use in every meaning of light. We are doing a lot of museums, we're doing a lot of hospitality, we're doing a lot of commercial projects. There is no way out of it, because if you look at the right light, LED light sources, you can work in every kind of project with these light sources. There's products which satisfies your needs at all.
Maybe because of the technology and the quality of LEDs, because the manufacturer, they reach a technology that fulfill all expectation.
It gave us more diversity. It gave us more choices. It gave us more possibilities, and make the things, for example, the color changing, so dimmabilities, and the fixtures are compact, so we can integrate in the place that we could never imagine to do before. So it gave us more possibilities.
There are solutions that are made far more practical using LEDs than there are any other source, because of their size and their ability to be ganged up in very special ways.
This point source can be, they develop so many ideas for us.
LEDs offer a lot of unique opportunities for lighting designer. You can use LED actually in a very discreet way. You will hardly see the LED. You can also use LEDs in a very more expressive way that you make nearly advertisement part out of it.
Maintenance is a huge, huge reason. Lamp life, dimming, color characteristics, the ability to get better color rendering out of a smaller source.
Yeah, the interesting thing, for a long time people were like, in Germany the light bulbs were forbidden. You couldn't use them anymore. And then we had these awful LED light bulbs, very awful light, wrong color temperature, and everyone was crying and wished the light bulb would come back. And actually today it is back, and they may make it from LED, and you can almost not see the difference anymore. And that is for me the key feature of the LED. It can mimic all the other light sources.
You can dim it, you can change the color temperature, and so I like to install it as an integration of daylight.
When I started, there was 3 light sources: incandescent, fluorescence, and metal halides. So we had 3. Now we have LEDs, and you can integrate light into architecture, more into furniture, and that's creating a whole new variety of options, which makes my life more richer, and I can be more creative. This is perfect.
It's truly the light for the next generation, something which is really interconnected. It's not a light in itself, it's really part of the entire building infrastructure. It's really something which is inwoven and it's really responsive.
If I can make an example with the music now, if you're using traditional sources, you have a monotone. If you're using LED, you can compose the light, like in the music, so you can become a composer.
When people ask me what do you want to do, I said I hope to light a tone like we write a symphony. I'm doing. That's crazy.
we have something within OF lighting that we call liquid light. And that is something that we're developing right now, and this will be that light constantly changes.
LED is completely different from the other, the light source, and it must be some kind of alien for.
So I would say none of my installation is basically possible without the current developments of LED.
Past, I'd never really been that interested in artificial lighting when we're talking about 10, 15, 20 years ago, but obviously with LEDs and eventually with OLEDs and all that, there's an opportunity to do things with light that we were never able to do before. However, I think LEDs are being sort of forced into sort of a replacement position. And we're just trying to replace mercury vapor or incandescent, or you're just trying to replace the actual source, when in fact I think they have a whole other potential relative to mimicking or capturing qualities that are more natural in terms of connections to our daylight as opposed to linking it always artificial.
It changes the possibility and the capacity to create and to imagine, but not the way of designing light.
LEDs actually liberate, I have to say. They give us a lot of liberties, but don't get overhyped. Actually, it's like there are so many. LEDs is still only a tool. It's a tool, and you cannot. A tool is not a lighting solution. You have to be really mindful about it. The height is not the solution.
So the lamp never changed, the bulb never changed the solution. The bulb changed the tools. The solution of lighting is having the good reflector, having the good filter, having the good beam, having the good imagination. The solution is made by the lighting designer, not by the lamp.
Light is light. And the way in which we use light now and think about it and talk about it and conceive projects in light, I guess is similar to the way that we've always thought about it, because the way that we develop concepts is to think about light and darkness and think about the effect we want to create. We think about the quantity of the light, we think about the quality of the light, we think about where we're going to put the light and what sort of atmosphere, what we're, we sort of come up with ideas and try and sort of make them work as effectively as possible for projects. Because we've always said that the tools by which we achieve those effects are something that is not secondary to, but is the next consideration. The fact that we're then reaching for LEDs as opposed to reaching for metal halide or reaching for tungsten hasn't made a profound difference to a design process.
Depends on the project. I have no preconceived notion of anything. I believe that if you have a preconceived notion on how to light a project, you will never do a good job. The preconceived notion will get in the way. You have to have an open mind, complete blank slate.
I think the lighting designer influences change by the projects they do. And do they take a risk and make it more wonderful or more special?
As a lighting designer, on one hand you are focused on project work, but we have also to be okay to take some risk and not only to take this to another way. So we have to challenge convention, to say it in short. We can only be actually a driver of change if we can become think tank.
The designer should also try to push the boundaries of how to apply the products that are available. A lot of people, they see one example how to use something and then they just do that, but there's always more to it. You can always, even misuse some stuff and use it for applications that it was actually not made for.
For source, I would say we don't have a big influence, again, because it's a huge worldwide market. So I was always arguing with manufacturers, especially source manufacturers, because they don't come to see us, they don't ask us what do we want, they don't try to understand what would be the future, and they just make their product and they market them. And
manufacturers of LEDs have not asked lighting designers of what they think. We're not there to help them. They have not asked us to improve their products or look at ideas what they can do. and this needs to change.
I think as lighting designers, we can have a considerable say in the development of LEDs in the future by trying to work in partnership with the manufacturers to explain to them what we need and the way in which we wish to use light sources.
Promote the profession by realizing good projects.
The LED manufacturer must be responsible of the drivers.
It's silly how small the light sources are, and the DMX is a monster.
The only thing I'm missing is diversity of colors. Not diversity of whites, but diversity of colors. Because I remember when the LEDs arrived on the market, they sold us like millions colors and millions tones of colors, and we were all expected to have like 50 purple and 12 pink and 30 yellows, and that's not. On the market you have 2 blue, and when you want one more blue, you say, oh come on, you cannot give you another blue, you have already 2 blue.
I like that the sources should have a spectrum that can change under my control. This would be fantastic.
But not RGB and white, but the possibility to have a completely range of spectrum with in serious way the wave in mobility, and because every typology of long wave is in contact with one aspect of our brain. It's not like colored or dynamic white. And every type of fine beaming arrive directly in one part of our brain.
Don't give me white LED. I don't want. I want to have 3 blue LED, 2 red LED, 1 yellow LED, 1 amber LED, and I make my own white. Give me every LED that I can change the power. Give me each LED that I can change the waves, 10 or less 10%. Then I make my light as I want. But don't give me the white. I don't need your white.
If we think back to our evolution, where we were a hunter-gatherer species, so we were outdoors during the majority of the daytime, and then at night we were exposed to low levels of light, either from the stars or from the moon. And that was how our biology evolved, and that's what we adapted to. Now we fast forward to where we live in an industrialized society here in the United States, where I live, in the UK where you live, in Germany where you live. These are all advanced cultures that have ubiquitous light at night, indoors where people live, and outdoors in the environment where they drive and walk during the nighttime. This exposure to light at night is a relatively new phenomenon and does in fact have an impact on hormone regulation in the body, circadian regulation, and ultimately sleep. The more blue enriched the light is, and the brighter the light it is, the more profound this effect will be on the body. Again, you can think about it in comparison to what our prehistoric ancestors experienced. Maybe at night they had firelight, maybe, but it was much dimmer and it was shifted to the red end of the spectrum. Now at night, as in the United States, there's a move to retrofit all street lighting to solid state. Most white solid state lighting has high emission levels of blue. This is the strongest stimulus for dysregulating the circadian system, impacting sleep and impacting the pineal hormone melatonin. We don't only want to focus on outdoor lighting because the majority of us spend our evenings indoors. And as we move as a culture to solid state lighting indoors, again, generic white solid-state light sources often are rich in the blue part of the spectrum. That's a nature of the current technology. That is not a necessity of the future technology. future technologies can in fact be shifted in a way to be better in terms of putative health effects. I think that this is a time that is very ripe for collaboration across disciplines, disciplines that don't normally work together. Lighting design, the biomedical community, the manufacturing community, the regulatory communities. This is a moment where we really need to come together and think clearly about what is going to be advantageous for domestic applications in future circumstances.
So you're not just aestheticizing a place or making it safe. You can say, okay, we can use this light in much more sophisticated ways to bring stuff together. But it also applies to things like, the old distinction between kind of event lighting and place lighting. With LED, you can make it maybe at certain points an event, or you can make transitions between different hours of the day into an event. So you can use LED, and again, without putting different lights in, as if. So you can stage things, and it's always been part of the light. One thing I really enjoy about lighting design, it's always been the lighting designer's language, that it's about, event, narrative, all the rest of it. And I think LED just makes, because it's so adaptable, allows you to really go for it with that, and make a street really into a kind of stage, into a performance space.
Dream, to drive in a box daylight and then like a daylight battery, and then reuse it directly from the box. It's just a dream.
To me, a perfect light would be flexible and solid at the same time, or by choice. So I can either use it very flexible or I can make it solid. I could shape it in any shape, like a three-dimensional shape, or like a surface, flexible surface in space, would be cuttable light pieces. It would be completely invisible when I turn it off, obviously. Would be nice to have it like a paint. I can paint it on any kind of surface and it can be emitting a light. That would be fantastic. And would also be good to be able to basically scale it in any size, and have it very big, one light source, or very tiny and small, and have infinite numbers possibly arranged in any arrangement I would like, and then be able to control this arrangement. And the best thing would be, of course, if it all would work without cabling.
If you know the efficiency of a firefly, it's 400 lumen per watt. This is the most efficiency you can find on the Earth, 400 lumen per watt. So if we can take a firefly gene and put it into chips of LEDs, I'm sure we'll get crazy things.
Go ahead, ask a question, see what happens.
What's your favourite light source?
I don't know.
I collect memories of perfect light on a daily basis, in my mind. This is what I do constantly. Looking at you is like looking at
We'll edit that bit.
Is there such a thing as a perfect light for humans?
There is a perfect light for humans.
Could you tell We need the dog in the film.
Absolutely.
These are the blurpy moments, yeah?
Yes, the outtakes. We were talking about that earlier, weren't we? Okay, Martin, technical director, tell us when you're ready.
I am ready. He looks amazing.
Okay.
So nice.
You know the answer.
I know. That's
LED.
You made me laugh.
I didn't do anything.
You did. You made me laugh.
It's going to be in the outtakes.
This is going to be in the outtakes.
I'm a lighting designer because of the magic.
What's your favourite light source?
Citizen LEDs.
No, yeah, I'm confusing. Okay, stop.